Thinking it would be a good idea to have a pouch full of copper rounds after a societal collapse doesn't mean I don't think there's a good place for this. Or for this. Or this. But for each thing I might add to my collection of preps, I run through a set of what-if tests based on where I expect to be in the event of a societal collapse. How will your favorite preps stand up against my tests? Join me to find out in the video ahead. Despite what many may think, being copper mutant doesn't mean I focus on copper to the exclusion of all other materials and knowledge, like some Mr. T of copper covered head to toe in copper chains, copper bullion rounds, bursting from my pockets and nothing else. You can enjoy a shiny copper round or ring, or collect scrap copper and still be a silver bug who watches Pirate Stacker, an excellent and entertaining YouTuber. Or a collector of nuts and bolts, or hoard aluminum and brass casings along with your beans, bandages, and freedom seeds, or leather scraps and leatherworking tools. If I'm guilty of anything, it's that I dabble in a little too much. Perhaps even better is gathering knowledge and learning skills such as foraging edible plants in your area, or storing meats in jars so they look like lab creatures preserved in formaldehyde ready for dissection. Yeah, forget that last one. Whatever you choose, your time, budget, and space, along with the considerations, the test I mentioned, that I'll cover in just a moment, will guide you with any of these pursuits. So let me explain how I arrived at my test first. How can you filter yourself from just hoarding everything that you see advertised with tactical and survival without much thought because everyone else is rushing to get those things like toilet paper in a pandemic? For a prep to really matter to me, I need to consider what makes sense not only in my area right now, for a 3-day ice storm with a relatively short power outage, but also in the case of a more serious collapse where I could lose electric, water, and gas. And those conditions will probably be different for you. Just go with me for a bit here and think through it. A 350-watt electric rice cooker might seem like a great thing to cook that 20-pound bag of rice you bought, but not so much if you lose power and only have a small solar plus battery backup that can't support that power draw. And while solar is great in the wide-open blue skies of West Texas, a solar setup might not even be your first choice if your bug-out location is an eternally cloudy part of the Pacific Northwest heavily shaded by 70-foot trees. You might want a gas generator instead, but then you need to consider how you'll keep a decent amount of gas and rotate it or preserve it with additives. If you're familiar with camping and saving space in a small RV with limited water, fuel, and power availability, you may already run through similar considerations in your head before you add a new toy to your camping gear and head out to the remote wilderness. You may see all the advertisements for emergency food supplies and go all in without considering how you are going to prepare it. Rice, pasta dishes can require a lot of water to cook even if you recycle it. And water is a precious resource you may not have much out of in the desert. You also need a source of heat to boil the water, and if you're relying on butane or propane, how long until you run out? Ultimately, your situation, not someone else's, should determine what type of preps should make your list. And yes, for me, that includes my favorite uncommon prep in copper. It needs to pass most of my tests for me to stick with it. So be clear, prepping for a possible apocalypse isn't a team sport for me, where I wave the flag for Team Copper. I'm not Rutger Hauer starring in a post-apocalyptic movie with Joan Chen. No, I'm always interested in new and different ideas for what I might toss into my bug-out bag. Well, I'll pass on adding a dog skull to that list. So, what's this series of tests I mentioned earlier? Well, before I shell out good money on something and regret it later, if not for the money, then for the space it takes up at least, I have a simple system where I ask myself if the item passes, and it should be bagged up. That's the easy mnemonic acronym I use. BAGD'UP. Barter value. Would anyone be interested in trading for this item after societal collapse? Affordability. How much of my budget will be consumed by this item? Is it something inexpensive? Will it eat up the entire budget? Grid down. Will I be able to use this item in a grid down situation? And if so, for how long? Durability. How long will this last me? Utility. Will this item be useful to me on its own, or can it be made into something else useful? Portability. Will I be able to easily transport or carry this thing in a vehicle, or better yet, while on foot? Let's take a simple item as an example. This $17 24-ounce ball peen hammer is a good one. Barter value. I'd say rather high. Everyone can use a hammer. Affordability? Check. If I can't afford a $17 hammer, I have bigger problems. And I think it's fair to say this hammer is a better buy than a cheaper Dollar General special, even if I pay $7 more for it. Grid down? Absolutely. Durability? Doesn't have a wooden handle. It's forged from one piece of steel. Has a rubber handle grip, which can get sticky in some cases, but you could wrap it in leather strips if that happens. Utility? Yes, it's a hammer. Not only is it good as a tool, it could serve as a weapon as well. Portability. It's not the smallest hammer, but you could carry it in your waist to double as a weapon, as I just mentioned, and it's not the heaviest hammer by a long shot. So clearly the hammer passes my test. Now onto this Aquatainer water cube, of which I have a couple. Barter value? If filled with water in the desert, might as well be liquid gold. Affordability? There are cheaper options, and I've seen these go for double the price on Amazon, so shopping around is a must. Grid down? Yes. Durability? It's more durable than a collapsible or clear container. Utility? It holds water, but I don't think it's meant for much else. Portability? It's as portable as water is going to be. It's not fun to lug these when they are full, but that's water for you. One more before I get to copper bullion rounds. A 20-pound haul of assorted obsolete electronic devices in varied states of disrepair. Barter value? Limited in apocalyptic scenario. Affordability? Close to free. This should be very easy to collect, even from garbage with enough patience. Grid down? Not really. Durability? The electronics could get banged up even further beyond repair when carted around, assuming any of them still work. Utility? You could potentially extract some limited amount of gold or other metals from the circuit boards, or if the devices are actually useful, get them into running condition again. You could make an apocalyptic spear from a crudely cut piece of sheet metal. Portability? 20 pounds is a lot to haul around anywhere on foot, especially oddly shaped pieces with jutting sharp edges. Another reason why I don't recommend random copper pipes as something I'd carry around in such a scenario either. So the moment many of you have been waiting for has come. Copper bullion rounds, will they pass the bagged up test? Barter value. I certainly think they are good barter. More so than zinc or copper nickel coins, Nuka-Cola bottle caps, and Chuck E. Cheese tokens. My previous video, How Much Will a Copper Round Be Worth Post-Apocalypse, covers what the actual value might be, so I'll refer you to that video for a breakdown on this one. Affordability. I just picked up several 1-ounce rounds from the Golden State Mint on sale for $1.49 each. For me, that's plenty affordable. Unless you have access to a lot of scrap pure copper and the means to make your own coins for portability, or something similar. This is a good value for me. Grid down? Why not? Durability? Not only are they durable, but you could heat, anneal, and form them into something else if needed. And that leads me to utility. My 10 Reasons to Have Copper for Your Survival Stash video, which has been very popular, covers this at length. And I'll be sure to do another similar one sometime soon. And get out my crucible and tongs for the backyard. Portability? That's where the copper rounds shine. I could find a random pile of pipe and scrap, as I mentioned, with sharp edges and toss them into a sack and sling them over my shoulder. But a pouch of these does better, I think. I have recommended budget pours, backyard pours, and shot nuggets as alternatives as well. Lastly, before that buy button is clicked on any item, I should ask myself if I already have something very similar I just forgot about in my preps. Do I have a similar hammer that could do the same job? If it's an item with a quantity to it, do I already have enough of that item? This is where I can be found a bit guilty of breaking my own rules. I have a few hammers, a couple of aquatainers, I have enough copper to fill a pouch to carry into the wasteland, and then some. So I need to get creative about how I store or carry any more to justify it, or find different locations either on or off my main property. Perhaps there could be secured or hidden aquatainers waiting for me on my BAGD'UP property, for example. I'll never tell. Before I wrap up, I'll go off topic for just a bit. One opinion shared is that I have a weird copper fetish. Fair enough. There are certainly more bizarre fetishes out there, so I'll gladly own that label. You've probably heard you're supposed to prep the exact same things that everyone else is prepping. The beans, bullets, freedom seeds. Echoed everywhere 10,000 times. These are common sense things. Emphasis on the word common. They've been mentioned 10,000 times for good reason. But once you've built your foundation of basic preps, I recommend you go a little beyond. Think out of the box. Prep skills, tools, and materials and gather knowledge likely to be unique and valued in your circle. Be a mutant, not a normie. Until next time, this is Copper Mutant, signing out.